Have you ever noticed how our modern world is obsessed with instant feedback? From app notifications to real-time sales dashboards, everything is tracked, measured, and displayed immediately. We think this makes us more efficient, more responsive, more in control. But what if this constant stream of information is actually breaking the very systems designed to motivate us? Let's talk about incentive design. Traditionally, incentives were built for a world where feedback was slow. You'd take an action, wait for the outcome, and only then would your decision be evaluated. Think of a farmer planting crops. They don't get a daily report card on seed performance. They have to wait for the harvest. This delay wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. It created space for judgment, interpretation, and learning. Incentives acted as a compass, pointing you in the right direction without micromanaging every step. You had room to experiment, to make mistakes, and to understand the bigger picture before the results came in. But today, that's all changed. Digital platforms and real-time analytics have made feedback instantaneous. Your performance metrics are always visible, updating with every click. This shift isn't just a minor tweak. It fundamentally breaks how incentives are supposed to work. Instead of guiding your behavior after a decision, they start shaping your behavior during the decision. And the result isn't better alignment, it's the slow, quiet collapse of effective incentive design. The core problem is that incentives need time to work properly. That gap between action and evaluation is crucial. It creates distance, and distance is what allows us to consider context, uncertainty, and trade-off. It prevents us from judging every single action in isolation and encourages us to learn from patterns over time. Instant feedback completely erases this distance. When evaluation is immediate, our behavior adapts immediately. We stop thinking about long-term goals and start thinking about how to influence the next signal, the next blip on the screen. Incentives morph from being helpful guides into a source of constant, relentless pressure. This also changes how we think. Slow feedback encourages reasoning. It makes you ask why something happened. Is this result a fluke or part of a meaningful pattern? How does this connect to our larger objectives? It forces you to build a mental model of the world. Fast feedback, on the other hand, just encourages reaction. When a number on a chart wiggles, your attention narrows to that single movement. Your decisions become tiny, reactive adjustments instead of deliberate, strategic choices. You're no longer interpreting the world, you're just responding to it. And this isn't a personal failing. It's a completely natural human response to being bombarded with constant feedback. In these hyper-responsive systems, speed becomes the most rewarded skill. People quickly learn that acting fast makes the visible metrics look good. Pausing to think, to reflect, just looks like you're falling behind. So even if a company's mission statement praises deep thinking and quality, the system itself rewards quick reactions. Over time, the incentives quietly shift. They stop rewarding good judgment and start rewarding pure responsiveness. The goal becomes to react faster than anyone else, not necessarily to make the best decision. This compresses our entire decision-making process. Action and evaluation blur into one continuous loop. Every micro-decision is immediately judged, leaving no clear separation between doing and assessing. As a result, the scope of our decisions shrinks. We stop asking big, strategic questions about where we're going and focus entirely on small, tactical optimizations to make the numbers go up right now. The system becomes incredibly efficient at short-term tasks, but dangerously shallow in its reasoning. Judgment, which absolutely requires time and context, becomes almost impossible to apply. Think about the pressure this creates. Traditional incentives, like an annual bonus, apply pressure periodically. You work hard, and then at a specific point, you're evaluated. But instant feedback applies pressure continuously. The dashboard is always on. The rankings are always updating. The comparisons are always visible, even without a direct reward tied to it. This constant visibility creates immense psychological pressure to tweak, to adjust, to do something. There's no natural moment to just pause and reflect. Incentives are no longer motivating you at key moments. They are subtly shaping your every move, often without you even realizing it. What's worse is that instant feedback can tell the difference between a meaningful signal and random noise. A short-term dip, a random fluctuation, an incomplete data point, they all look like urgent, actionable information. In slower systems, this kind of noise tends to average itself out over time. But in a fast system, every bit of noise demands a reaction. so people end up chasing ghosts, reacting to changes that have no real long-term significance. Their behavior becomes unstable, swinging back and forth in response to transient signals. And when incentives are tied to this instant feedback, it just amplifies the chaos. This completely short-circuits the process of learning. True learning requires delay. It involves observing an outcome, comparing it to your expectations, and then updating your understanding of how things work. Instant feedback interrupts this cycle before it can even begin. Instead of learning, the system simply optimizes. It adjusts behavior to improve the immediate signal, without ever developing a deeper understanding of why that signal changed in the first place. The metrics might look better, but no real insight is gained. We create systems that are great at hitting targets, but terrible at understanding the game. Automation and algorithms pour gasoline on this fire. They tighten these feedback loops to a superhuman scale. Algorithms evaluate performance continuously, adjustments happen automatically, and signals propagate through entire systems in milliseconds. In this environment, human judgment becomes a bottleneck. By the time you've had a chance to reflect on a decision, the system has already reacted and moved on. This is how incentive design completely loses its power in highly automated worlds. Instant feedback also strips away all context. A metric on a screen tells you what just happened, but it doesn't tell you about the broader conditions, external influences, or the delayed effects of past actions. When your incentives are tied to these context-free signals, your behavior naturally aligns with what the metric is capturing, not with what the system actually needs to be healthy in the long run. We sacrifice contextual reasoning for simple metric alignment, and because some things are easier to measure in real time than others, like clicks, response times, or activity levels, the system naturally drifts toward optimizing for those things. Deeper values like trust, creativity, or long-term resilience, which are hard to measure instantly, get left behind. This isn't an ethical failure, it's a structural one. All of this creates a slow, almost invisible behavioral drift. Small, seemingly reasonable adjustments accumulate over time, and before you know it, your behavior has drifted far from its original intent. And because the feedback is so constant, you never get that moment to step back and ask, are we still heading in the right direction? You're always just reacting to the immediate present. The drift only becomes obvious when something finally breaks. The great irony is that all this real-time data creates a powerful illusion of control. Those shiny dashboards make us feel like we have total transparency and precision. When we tweak something and a metric improves, it feels like we're making progress. But often, we're just getting better at gaming the incentive, not at creating genuine value. We become confident in what we can see, and blind to all the important things the metrics fail to capture. Our sense of control becomes completely superficial. So what's the solution? We need to consciously slow things down. Effective incentive design requires friction. It requires deliberate delays that allow outcomes to fully unfold, and for real patterns to emerge from the noise. Slowing down feedback isn't a sign of inefficiency. It's a critical design choice that preserves the space for human judgment to operate. In a world where speed is the default, we have to intentionally build in pauses. Incentives were designed for a world where time allowed for reflection and learning, but instant feedback has stolen that time. When feedback is immediate, incentives stop guiding us and start controlling us. They reward reaction over reflection, optimization over understanding, and short-term metrics over long-term value. This isn't because people are flawed, it's because the structure of the system shapes their behavior. By understanding this, we can start to design better, more balanced systems. Because incentives work best when feedback is just slow enough to allow our greatest human assets, learning, interpretation, and judgment, to thrive. Without that time, incentives lose their very purpose. Thanks for watching. If this idea made you think, consider subscribing for more content that challenges how we see the world. See you next time.